I go to the plant once a year now that Charles is gone, and I get to see Rob, and he is still bringing about a wonderful quality in his team of respect and pride. This is just one example of the difference someone can make in another person's life. Now, the quote and the inspirational message that I have for you for this one is from Winston Churchill. He said, "We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give." And I think giving to others not only helps them, and that increases their level of positiveness, right? But also makes our lives more meaningful. So I'd like you to take a moment and think about who has mentored you in the past. And you've got some place on your worksheet to jot someone down. You can think of a mentor. And as you're writing that person down, think about what did that person do to build your confidence, to lift you up when you were down, or to inspire you in your work, your career, or some path that you were going on. And then if you would, take a moment to think about who's in your sphere, who you could mentor, and jot that person down, and how you might want to build, lift, and inspire them. And one thing I want to say is that oftentimes, we're trying to come up with people that will proactively try to mentor, but oftentimes what happens is you influence people you don't even know about. If you've got a caring spirit and a supportive spirit and you're interacting with people, I bet you there's a ton of people that you've mentored and you don't even know. And also know that I don't think it takes a lot. Charles just encouraged college with Rob. I think it can be as simple as a smile, a touch, a compliment. We don't get enough of those. And a listening ear. Affirm yourself, which I know Rotarians are great at, to mentor others. And now my third and final affirmation is this. In addition to reach your goals and mentor others, I hope this one will encourage you in your most difficult life challenges. It is a reservoir of strength within me. Life is really hectic and busy. We all have so much on our plates that when something major happens, like an illness or some of those things we talked about earlier, it can really test our strength. And then all it takes is something little, right, to just throw us over the edge. And when one thing happens, other things keep piling on. It's like when you're late for an appointment, you can't find your keys, and you're going out to the car and you trip and everything goes everywhere, and that's the way you start your day. How many of you feel like you've got way too much going on? Some of you are retired. You don't even get to count. But most of us, even when we're retired, right? Most of us have way too much. I'm retired too, and I've got way too much on my plate. You may have heard of the saying, bad things come in threes. Well, I don't buy it. I think they come in 6s and 7s. That's been my experience throughout my life. There's no limit to how many things can happen. Well, let me go back to this concept of a reservoir. If you're really going through a hard struggle right now, you might say, Janet, my reservoir feels really dry. I don't know that there's much there. And what I would say to you is that my experience was when I needed that strength, even though I was going through the 6s and 7s, it was there. And so I encourage you to try and utilize that strength that you have within. To me, it's like a spring that has this underground source of water that keeps bubbling up. And so when you use the strength, somehow that spring gets filled back up. I don't understand the mechanism. I've just experienced that in my life. So let me share with you one of my many examples of when my strength was tested. Now imagine this. Charles, one night after I got him ready for bed, started to have some weird symptoms that weren't similar to what he had ever experienced before with this neurological disease. He started shaking, he started sweating profusely, and he started breathing rapidly. Well, what do? You take him to the emergency room. So when I got to the emergency room, the doctors wanted to put him into the hospital. So we had to wait in the emergency room for them to get a room for us. And so I got a wet towel and I cooled him down. He was plugged into all the monitors and he was finally settling in a bit. And by that time it was getting close to midnight and I was exhausted. And so I noticed there was one of those really comfortable plastic chairs at the front of the bed. And I sat there and tried to rest and see if I could get a little bit of sleep. But you know, you're half in, half out. There's so much noise going on around you. There's no privacy. You just have a curtain separating your bed from the one next to you. So I was in and out. A little later in the night, probably close to 1 o'clock in the morning, I heard them bring in what sounded like a younger woman to our left. And I heard her say to the doctor, "I see bugs on the ceiling, bugs on the floor, bugs on the bed, bugs all over you, doctor." So I'm thinking, oh my goodness, she's on drugs. I hope she stays over there. And then that must have triggered in my brain, where's my purse? And you know, I ran in so quick, I dropped it at the end of the bed, and now I'm sitting at the front of the bed. Well, I opened my eyes, and would you believe she had her hands on my purse at that very moment? So I grab my purse, I make a big stink with the nurses, and they get her back in her bed, and I go back and sit in that chair, and I think, I'm so glad I thought about that. And then I thought, ooh, what if she wasn't picking it up, but what if she had already gone through it and was putting it back down? I opened it up, got my wallet out, and my money was gone, my credit cards were gone, and my license was gone. She was a blonde too, about my size. I guess she thought she could pass for me. Well, now I've got to make another big stink. They've got to bring in the campus police. Now I've got to write a report. And remember, I'm scared to death. My husband's here and he's getting admitted into the hospital and I don't know what's wrong with him. It's not fair. Life was hitting me in 6s and 7s. Well, all I know is that when those things continued to happen to me, one after another, throughout this disease with Charles, is that I could take it if I just took what was in front of me and took one step at a time. And that's how I got through. And as I look back to what my reservoir was, I think I figured it out. For me, it was talking with my friends and my family. That's the way I process my thoughts, my feelings, my fears, was out loud with others. Interesting enough, Charles was opposite. He internalized everything and he coped within, but I needed everyone else. My inspirational message for you is from Kay Yao. Anyone heard of her? You would, North Carolina. We're doing this just for you. NC State, women's basketball coach. 34 years, 8 times National Coach of the Year. She took 2 women's basketball teams to Olympic gold. She got breast cancer. In fact, she died a year and a half ago at the age of 66. I just happened to be watching television on some kind of magazine show, and she was being interviewed, and she said something very powerful. She said, when life kicks you, let it kick you forward. And our lives are going to kick us. And sometimes you're going to want to just kind of roll in a ball and wallow in the pain. You know, it feels good sometimes, just be sad. But I caution you that you could spiral down and down and down again to where it gets very hard to think about how you're going to get back out. So when these things happen, instead of spiraling down, dig deep. Pull out that optimism, that strength that's within you to give you back your life and let this experience take you forward. Now, on your worksheet, I'd like you to think about what struggles are you involved with right now? And sometimes it helps to look back to what has restored you in the past. So think about something where you struggled with and you got through it. Well, what was it that helped you get through? For me, it was talking with my friends. For Charles, it was going within himself. For you, it might be getting out in nature and going hunting or hiking. It might be finding some kind of peaceful calm through meditation, yoga, or prayer. Or like me, it might be talking to a friend or family member. So think about, where is that reservoir for you? Jot it down if you think of something, because that's what you want to go back to. And know that that reservoir is there even when it feels dried up, that you can pull at it, use it, and know that as human beings we are resilient. Affirm yourself with that reservoir you have within. So in closing, I hope you've seen from the personal stories I've given and the affirmations that I've given of reach your goals, mentor others, and find that reservoir within, that they can guide you. They can help you lift up others and lift yourself up. You know, I've shared some of our stories and how we tried to make meaning out of them. It wasn't always easy, but we worked at it, and it made all the difference. So I hope you will start affirming yourself in your ups, your downs, and your unique opportunities. And before I give my final quote, I'd like to open it up for questions. Does anyone have any questions for me? The question was, did he start this before or after he had the neurological disease? Well, one thing I didn't tell you was Charles also had heart disease. And when he was 43, he had an angioplasty. So he already had that diagnosis, but he would, and so you would think that that was what got him motivated. But he told me that no, that wasn't it. It was that he wanted that daily personal victory. He was going through some hard times at work. To me, he was light years ahead of most people in that company with his management philosophies, and he felt alone, and I think this was what was going to give him that victory each day. But once that disease came on, it really challenged him. Have a supremacy over circumstance. And you're saying have a spirit of supremacy over circumstance. It goes back to that life is difficult. Bad things happen, and we can't always control what is going to happen to us, but we can control our reaction to it and how we go at it. And I hope you've seen through this that there's a positive way to go at it. And if you go through a positive way, you're going to have a better balance in your life. Yes? Yes, okay, so this will be our last question. It's a question about what is atypical Parkinson's disease. So most of you probably know what Parkinson's disease is. It's a movement disorder. Well, atypical Parkinson's is also a movement disorder, but doesn't have the same actual physiological, whatever's happening in the brain is a little different. But it still happens in the brain. So in the atypical Parkinson's, you still have a movement disorder. Charles also had some cognitive losses, which can also happen with Parkinson's. So they're similar, but they're actually different. Charles' autopsy showed that he had CBD, cortical basal degeneration, which is very rare, but it's close to a cousin disease he was diagnosed with from Mass General, which was progressive supranuclear palsy. I think you will, PSP, I think you'll see more about that in the future. Dudley Moore, the actor, had PSP. And it's as common as ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. Well, before I close, because I know you're ready to close down, I'd like to give you my final inspirational message. When Charles was finally able, it took him a year to talk to people about this disease. When he finally could, he took people out one-on-one to tell them. And he took the owner of his company out, the founder, Bob Fulton. Wonderful people person. He came home after taking Bob to dinner and telling him all about what he thought this disease was. And he said, Janet, you know what Bob said to me? He said, Charles, I hope this disease makes you better, not bitter. I hope your life journey makes you better, not bitter. Thank you.